wanted to really get across with the Jenga Game of Life is the fact that all of us, wherever we're at, there's always going to be things that push those little wooden blocks out. Just as you're building up, there's going to be things that come along to try and collapse that tower. But there's also so many things, aren't there, Brice, that we can be doing to plug those gaps in as quick as they appear.
Yes. And I was telling you before we signed on that this kind of goes back to a video clip High released a couple of days ago that I really appreciated, because he kind of, it's interesting, especially when you're a student. We'll get into the role of the student, and all these people are kind of teaching the same theory, but they say it in different ways. And sometimes the way somebody else says it is going to click with someone else versus the way another person says it. It's the same message, but it's the way it clicks in your mind. And with the Jenga Game of Life, this is what we kind of signed up for when we took a human experience. I think there's this really kind of, I don't know if it's an ignorant approach or maybe it's just an uninformed approach, that at some point in this existence in a human body, we're going to master life. When you master life is when you die. Yeah. So if you're still in a human body, you're still going to have these Jenga things happening to you. And what this is, and the way that Eastern philosophy looks at this, is even though these little pushes aren't comfortable and they're frustrating, they're necessary, because they cause you to have to reground yourself, to have to rethink yourself, to have to reshift yourself. And it's like those graphs people show, and when people think of success, they think of it as just like a straight line up. But real success looks like this: highs and lows,
all sorts of stresses that are pushing those blocks of your life out. And it's so unrealistic, don't you think, Brice, to expect those blocks. It's not like you ever build your tower, as you say, and then it stays there. However beautiful your tower is built, there's always going to be something that's going to come and push a segment out.
And you can look at that too I was just thinking as well about the idea of course correction in life. And sometimes, and this has been my experience through most of my life, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, will like tap you on the shoulder and be like, you're going in the wrong direction. You're building in the wrong direction. You're building in the wrong direction, and you don't listen. And so it's literally going to come in and smack you. And so sometimes when these Jenga pieces get pushed out, it's also a renovation. Yeah. It's also pushing you in a different direction. And I know, and Ram Dass again speaks about this, sometimes we can look back at our life and look at the trajectory of our life and see where these little wobbly places have happened in our life that we thought were just so horrible in the moment, but it put us on a path of that we would never trade for the world now. I look at I love what I do now on YouTube. I love doing this job. I love it. And now I'm branching off and doing more about the yoga stuff, which I didn't start off doing on YouTube. But the only reason why I'm on YouTube is because my shala shut down when the lockdown happened. And I was hit with that moment of, oh my God, I've spent all these years going back and forth to India, doing all this work, sweat, blood, and tear, broken bones, everything. And now just like that, the government came down and took it away.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out something else. And so I just started doing YouTube, and I feel like I had nothing to lose. I could start talking about my political beliefs on YouTube because my business was gone, and now it's given me so many wonderful opportunities, having you as a friend, having Stephanie, Shanti, Morning, all these people that are now my legitimate friends. Even if YouTube went away today, Catherine would still be a good friend of mine, one of my best friends. Like,
keeping that opening, questioning mind is where we're going to learn the most. And it's so important because we've got to question ourselves. But there's a couple of things that have come up recently, partly at the conference I went to, but partly things that have been coming up for me quite a lot, that I've been observing a lot in what's going on around me. Do you think, Brice, that we're really at a time now for people to start taking action, whether it's for them to say, right, I'm here in my life, these bits have been knocked out, how do I want to course correct? How do I want to rebuild my Jenga tower? Do I want to take a course? Do I want to do some studying? Do I want to improve my health? What aspect do I want to do? But I've done enough sort of listening. I've now physically got to start doing.
I think that point in time for every individual could be any point of your life where you make that decision. But as far as us globally, I was reading doing a recording for the Sophia Code, and she kind of spoke about this with the transference of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. And what she kind of spoke about is this idea of immanence versus transcendence. And transcendence is kind of the Western world modality that we've been living under spiritually, where again, God is outside of us and we're having to somehow achieve and reach God, which causes the jealousy, it causes the bitterness, it causes the shame, the anger, because we feel like we are without. Where immanence is realizing that God is within us and God is everywhere, and how much more freeing that is and liberating that is. And I think because we're moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, you know, when we go through what's happening right now is just energetically, collectively, for everyone, we're going through a metamorphosis. And metamorphosis is never going to be comfortable. You think about like a caterpillar cocooning. I'm sure it's not comfortable for the butterfly to bust out of that cocoon, but it's necessary. And so
ancient philosophy and applying it to modern times is so important. But when we remind ourselves that we cannot get to where we want to be without the ups and downs of life, and it's how we deal with those. Yes, there are some very, very tragic things that happen. I'm not negating that at all. And at the time, we've all been through them. They're incredibly challenging to deal with. But just like you said, sort of with nature, there is a natural cycle to life. Some people are trying to push that forward a bit too quickly and make our autumns come a bit quick. But when you know that, there's so much corrective action you can take as well. And part of the wisdom, I think, and you only get this through experience, in my opinion, is to know when to surrender and let go, and what's part of life's natural flow, and when to course correct and take corrective action.
absolutely. And I'm glad you said that there's sources available. And I do want to bring up the idea of toxic positivity. So we're not saying like you have to pretend like everything's fine. It's like that meme with Ross from Friends where he's like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. No, you're allowed to have your moments of being emotional. And yes, when shit happens and it sucks and it's hard and it brings you to a point of devastation sometimes. But that needs to be understood, and to lean into that. I know a lot of therapists call it leaning into that feeling of hopelessness, because the only thing that's going to give you hope, the only thing that's going to give you power is leaning into the hopelessness, leaning into the feeling of being powerless. No.